Welcome everybody. In this video we will analyze the game between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja that was just played a few hours ago in the final match of the Champions Chess Tour. So this was game 4. Magnus is white. He started with some sort of the double fianchetto. This is probably for the reason because in game 2, when Magnus was also white, Alireza played a great Greenfield Indian defense. He was very inspired and he easily obtained the draw. So I guess Magnus wanted to try something different this time. Alireza is now running some sort of King's Indian setup here, which is another opening that he regularly employs with black. So this is all familiar for him. The previous 3 games of the match were drawn, so this was the game 4 that was to decide the winner of the match. So after a dozen of moves, the game finally transposed to the proper King's Indian defense, the fianchetto variation. Now this nice move by Firouzja that he prepared the attack against h2. White has to defend. And now this discovered the attack with the check on g4. So white has to take it. Black took it back. Protecting g4, of course. And now the queen has no more business on c8. It moves to c7 to connect the rooks, to protect the d6 pawn. And this is just some sort of regular position. White has the double pawns here. His setup at the moment is solid or passive, but it's not set in stone. This actually pawn mass is still fluid, and it can be advanced, as we will be seeing later in the game. So now Magnus attacked on d6 twice, but black didn't really care. He just simply improved his bishop. And Magnus refused to take on d6. Let's see what would happen if queen takes on d6. So white has an extra pawn, but actually black has a fantastic counterplay now against pawns and pieces on the queen side that are kind of hanging in the thin air. b3 is under pressure, c4 by this bishop. The dark square bishop is eyeing his opponent on b2. Knight on c3 is pinned, so it's not really a pleasant situation for white. So if he plays, for example, b4, black is not retreating the knight, but he's counterattacking with a3, which is fantastic move, attacking the bishop to clean the a4 square for the knight. So after bishop a1, knight a4, and after the exchange, these pawns on b4 and c4 are weak. 1 or 2 will drop, but also this pawn on a2 is in danger. A3 pawn is already very far ahead. It needs only 2 moves to promote once the a file is clear. So this is already slightly better for black. So white would not be advised to grab on d6. Instead, what he does, he moves the knight just to prevent this pin on the long diagonal that we were mentioning in the previous line. Since c4 is very solidly protected by the pawn of f3, the rook has no business on the e file. It moves on the d file now. And now f6. Since the dark square bishops are exchanged, now black is trying to cover the dark squares around his king. He can also play king g8. It's not bad immediately, but in the long run, maybe white can double the rooks on the d file, and he can maybe, in some lines, take advantage of the weakened dark squares around the black king. So just for this reason, Firouzja plays f6. He has the light square bishop and the dark to cover the light squares, and he will cover the dark squares with his pawns. Okay, Magnus is doubling the rooks. Bishop is stepping back from the knight's attack from d4 or f4, and also clears the space for his own knight to fall back to e6 if it's needed. Now finally we see that despite being weak, the pawn structure of white started to rolling ahead. The point is that having the queen and the king on this diagonal, some sort of an X-ray, the queen is targeting the king through the pieces, but the diagonal can easily be cleared after white pushes g5. So for this reason, black is immediately stepping back with his king. You can notice that black cannot take the pawn on e4 because after the exchange, this queen is trapped in the center of the board. It has no good squares. So black will be losing here. Instead, he played king g8. And now rook e2 anyway, just to protect the e4 pawn. Here, Firouzja missed a very strong opportunity. He played knight a6, just retreating the knight to a natural square. This is all normal, but he missed the chance to play h3. Magnus, this game was actually played in rapid time control, 10+5. Magnus here had around 5 minutes, but Firouzja was already on minute and a half. And possibly because of his time trouble, he missed the opportunity to play a3, which was a great move. The point is that if white takes on c5, there is a pin along the d file, so now the knight is pinned, it cannot move because rook on d1 is hanging. Okay, he can take on c6 maybe, or play knight f5 just to destroy the black's pawn structure. Now black has two pairs of double pawns, but when he recaptures here on f5, actually black has this amazing move queen d4 that is exploiting the weakness of c4 and a2, and actually here already black is slightly better, so this was not a good option for white. He has now the passed pawn, two weak pawns, so it's not really good position for white. But in the game, Firouzja played knight a6 immediately, and Magnus proceeded with b5. And now Firouzja played rook c8. After the exchange, the c file is open, so he decided to press the c4 pawn, quite rightfully. And here maybe Magnus was maybe a little bit upset that he allowed this, and he played rook d2. I don't know why he didn't like rook d4, which looks quite natural. And now you can play rook d2 if you want, just protect the pawn. Maybe he was not happy about knight c7, and now if you exchange, the other rook comes here pressed on c4. So, and if you retreat on a3, so now black has this beautiful move knight d5, exploiting the pins on c file and on e file. You cannot take it either way, but this move is very pretty, but other than that, it doesn't really provide any benefit to the black's position. So if you play simply queen d2, now the knight has to go back to c7. So you gain nothing, just play a nice move. So Magnus played rook d2, allowing the capturing on c4. And now the great move d5, that is again exploiting the pin on the e file. So black is managing to make some simplifications and reach the endgame. He is exchanging the knight, of course. And now, after white recaptures on d5, there will be massive exchanges heading into an endgame. That is still not simple because there are two pairs of heavy pieces on the board, so it's quite easy to fall under the attack. White king can be slightly safer here on h3 than his black counterpart on the back files. But if black plays well and precise, he should be able to easily hold the position. So here queen e6, which is a great move, attacking the rook and the pawn on g4 and eyeing the pawn on a2, which is also a check. This can be very useful tempo in some positions. White is protecting the rook and attacking the pawn on g6. And now Alireza captured the pawn on g4, making actually a huge blunder. It's a very attractive move, very easily you decide to play this, especially now that they're both in time trouble. Actually, Alireza is down to 15 seconds. You capture the pawn, you protect g6, so it looks great. But white has this fantastic move, e6. We will show why this is a great move. Just let's see what was better option for black. Actually, he should have just taken on e5, and now the queen is protecting g6, so that's fine for him. And so what can white do here? If he takes with the rook on e5, there is this handy check that we mentioned before. And after king h3, king h7, and black should be able to hold this position. Otherwise, taking on e5 instead of rook e5, he had rook d6, for example, so just to make sure that he will capture on g6. But now white has a beautiful Zwischenzug, an in-between move, e4, that is covering this diagonal for the queen and disrupting the coordination of white pieces. So after queen d4, you take on a2, again check, king h3, and now check with the engine. Queen c4 should be sufficient to hold the draw, because if white gives you a check on d8, you play king f7, and this should be solid enough for black. There is no checkmate, but be careful not to play king h7, because now you get checkmated in h8. Okay, unfortunately for him, Alireza missed this option. He played queen g4 and missing e6, beautiful move that is has the point that you cannot take the pawn on e6 because queen takes on g6, and there is a checkmate in a couple of moves. So going back to the position, instead of queen e6, black played rook g7. Logical attempt, he is defending g6 and he wants to take on e6 in next move, given the chance, but black will not succeed in this because white has another beautiful move, f5. And now he is covering the diagonal for the black queen, and when you recapture on f5, now this pawn is no longer hanging, and black can play rook d8, the combination that he wanted initially. Rook d8, rook d7, because you wanted to force the king on h7 and just to keep this contact between the pieces, so that the rook cannot move along the g file, so because black king would be in check. Okay, so black will now try a couple of checks. White is trying to exchange all the pieces because the black king is far from the pawn. f4 is a good counter chance, but Still, black is not threatening to capture on g3 because the queen is pinned along the 7th rank. Magnus played g4. Actually, he could have played also king f1 and just put black in zugzwang. If he takes here, now you can play e7 because there is no good check with the queen. Just promote on the next move. He played g4, f5. Now black is opening his queen diagonal. He has some squares here to give some checks. But Magnus didn't care. He started pushing his own pawn because he calculated that black cannot hold the perpetual check because there is an easy way for white to go along the 2nd rank and then move ahead, just hide himself on a8 or b8, hide himself from the checks and just decide the game. So Alireza kept trying. He gave another check, king e2, f3. Now Magnus made a mistake. Actually, he should have continued playing along the 2nd rank. By going ahead for one square, he missed that black has this check. And the point is that now the king can never cross the d file. That's the trouble. And while being so, if you cannot go to the d file, you're forced on the other side. But now black will catch you in this square, and the king can no longer escape, and it cannot reach the safe haven on the other side of the board. And that's the trouble. So after queen e1, he takes the pawn, but white keeps checking like this with the opposition, just to make sure that he cannot cross to the d file. And again, just do this. And if he wants to try to go ahead, not to make this maneuver, just give him check on e4 and he has to go back, and you can just continue the same. Just be careful, be mindful here, queen e1, king f3, not to give the check on h1. Usually we are taught that in the queen's endings, when we are fighting for draw to save the game, we should give the diagonal checks. They're much more annoying for the opponent and it's easier to hold the perpetual, but here it's a mistake because it allows white to regain the 2nd rank, and now he can continue with the original plan of going along the 2nd rank to the other side of the board. So yeah, Magnus played king e3, and instead of queen e1, Alireza actually made a mistake. He pushed a pawn, which is a natural move. You give a check, you are one square closer to the promotion. It's something that probably 99% of us will do, but here it's a mistake because it allows white to come back to the 2nd rank. And now black can no longer save the game. Just white is starting to promote. See, he's still trying to give some checks, but the king will just go like this. He's trying to cut off on the 2nd rank, but on the 6th rank, but we'll see it's not possible. It's already too late. White will break through. Now you cannot really repeat like this because white will not go to f6 to allow the repetition. He will go to f7. So king f7 and e8, and it's over. That's why queen g6. Let's just see the final moves of the game. White finally broke through, and he can go to b8. After black exhausted all options for the checks, he resigned, and with this victory, Magnus won the match and the final event of the Champions Chess Tour. The final Knockout will be played in Oslo over the board in December. 8 finalists will play in the knockout. There are Magnus Carlsen, Alireza Firouzja, Maxim Vašer-Lagrave, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Wesley So, Vincent Keimer, Levan Aronian, and Denis Lazovic, who repeated his success from the previous event. Thank you all for watching, and see you soon in our future videos. Bye-bye.